Thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who's taking the time in the morning here to attend the presentation. We're very excited to continue to work with more customers of Algorithm and more Macola customers. I do know a couple of you, just because you are actually already in the middle of working with my team over at Prophix, so we're definitely excited to begin to work with the group of you. So we're going to get started with a quick presentation, and then we'll actually get into a hands-on demo. And as Jeff said, there'll be a couple of cadences in which I will say, you know, do we have any questions? And I'll refer to the chat window. So just feel free to type questions as you see them and as they come up. So without further ado, we're going to get started with my presentation. So just to give you a bit of a background on Prophix. Prophix is a corporate performance management software vendor. I'll get into what corporate performance management is in a second. But we are a privately held company founded in 1987, and we serve over 2,500 customers in about 94 countries. We do have an international presence with subsidiaries in London, Denmark, Brazil, and Singapore. And the market that we're in has allowed us to be on some fairly substantial, fastest growing lists. So we are quite proud of the rate at which we are growing, and we're quite proud of the fact that we're getting awards for not only fast growing, but for customer service as well. So in terms of what corporate performance management is, corporate performance management ranges from everything from budgeting, forecasting, and reporting to strategic planning, multi-entity, multi-currency consolidation, to detailed planning. And ultimately, what the focus of CPM is to align all of the data within your organization in a single unified solution. So as opposed to piecemealing together multiple solutions with multiple purposes, corporate performance management solves many of the pains and aches across multiple cross-functional departments within the organization. So what that allows organizations to do is integrate all of their data, both budget and actual, from across multiple areas of the company into a single agile solution that everybody can log into, everybody can access. So ultimately, CPM has two main objectives. One is the tactical objective of creating more efficient financial processes that relate to control and transparency, but it also has a strategic goal, which enables you as an organization to have a competitive advantage to be able to analyze all of the data within your organization. As I say to many of our customers, what Prophix allows you to do is to be able to utilize all of the data that you're putting into your ERP system, your CRM system. It really allows you to analyze all of this information that you take the time and you pay people to enter into your databases. So really, from a strategic point of view, Prophix allows you as an organization with a CPM tool to have quite a leg up on your competition because you do have the ability to analyze all of your data at a very detailed, very strategic level. And the software analyst firm, Gartner, basically analyzes the CPM industry in 5 different stages. The first 2 stages, which make up roughly 70% of existing companies today, are either unaware that the CPM industry exists, or they are rather opportunistic that the way they're doing things right now will be okay and will continue to be sufficient in the future. So what this means is that companies that are ultimately operating in silos, meaning that everybody does their own thing for reporting, everybody does their own thing for budgeting, but none of it actually integrates together. This is a very common business model, and as you can probably imagine, is a very disconnected business model. Roughly about 25% of firms today are using a level 3 CPM tool of some sort. And roughly 5% of those firms are using it as a full-fledged CPM tool, whereby they're bringing in not just their financial data, but their product data, their sales data, their manufacturing data. And what CPM allows you to do is to progress slowly but surely over the period of time and ultimately allow you to bring all of the components of CPM that I talked about earlier, like strategic planning, financial consolidation, reporting and budgeting. You can build those functional areas out over a period of time.
Chris, if you don't mind, I'm curious, do you have to implement the entire CPM suite?
No, you don't. So the one thing that we really push and that we really tell our customers and our prospects is that with Prophix, we really do promote a phased implementation of Prophix, and we really only ask our prospects or ask our customers to identify the areas initially, the biggest pain point areas, and we will tackle those as the sort of first phase of their implementation. So while our tool has many functions from budgeting and reporting to dashboards and scorecards, to many organizations, some of these things are not immediate pain points, or they are not necessarily things that will pertain to them. So with our tool, you actually get all of the functionality that you're seeing here on my screen, but you do only have to implement what you want. So as opposed to purchasing a point solution that only does budgeting or only does reporting or only deals with your financial GL level data, you can purchase a CPM tool that can do those things and more, but only pay for the things that you actually want. So we realize there is a market out there for firms that are just looking for a simple budgeting and reporting tool, so therefore we have approached our implementations in such that manner. So a couple of the things that you can expect for Macola customers, and this really is not necessarily specific to Macola customers, but really expected benefits for every Prophix user that's out there these days. So really, because Prophix is unifying all of the data in your system, not just from a data perspective, but from a actual data integration perspective, we're not only pulling information, but we're pulling new account codes, new department codes, new customer codes. We're pulling all that information over so that you don't have to then spend time reformatting reports, adding new rows to your templates. Prophix, as you'll see in a little bit, has the dynamic capability to update all of your reporting, update all of your planning in a very simple, easy manner. So you'll see in a little while what that means from a visual perspective, but really, truly, organizations are reducing their month-end timing, their budgeting timing from weeks down to days, down to hours because of the power of Prophix and what it can do for your organization to close the books, for example. One of the things that really is quite a sort of pain point for CFOs today, for finance organizations today, are not so much the month-end reporting, not so much the budgeting necessarily, but the amount of time that they spend on ad hoc requests. And the real genesis of these problems is not so much that the data is inaccessible, but modeling the data is very difficult. Average budget users or average end users don't have the knowledge or the wherewithal to actually be able to spin the data independently in a new way. So for example, if finance distributes a P&L and at the end of the month, the VP of sales says, well, I'd like to see the P&L broken out by product sales. I want to see more than just the one line for sales. That VP then has to request a new report from finance. Finance has to dump the data out of the ERP and recreate a new report from scratch. What Prophix does is it kind of turns that cultural paradox on its head and really actually makes the end user have to have the tools to be able to do that work on their own. So Prophix really puts the power in the end user's hands to be able to get the information they want because, again, all the information is located in Prophix. In terms of organizations that are wanting to take a more collaborative approach to budgeting, many organizations just budget for the entire organization within the Office of Finance. So the controller or the manager of finance will actually create the entire budget for the organization. There's definitely a trend in the market going on these days where people are wanting to take a more collaborative approach. And with a more collaborative approach tends to be a lot more work because you have to create multiple templates. You have to send those templates out through your email Outlook. So tracking those progression of those templates, ensuring people aren't removing rows or changing things they shouldn't be changing, all of those things are sort of the nightmares that finance has with respect to taking a more collaborative approach to budgeting. So with Prophix, it eliminates that because we have so many tools in place that will help you in taking a more collaborative approach. The other thing in terms of budgeting is that not only does Prophix have the ability to budget at an account level by department, but one thing we really stress is that with Prophix, you can budget using data and metrics that matter to you. So as a sales department, you wouldn't want to necessarily just budget sales as a total number. It would probably make more sense to budget sales in quantity, by price, by cost of goods sold, by product, by customer, so on and so forth. So what we really try to do is encourage our customers to budget with information that really matters to them. And not necessarily matters to them as a finance department, but matters to each of the functional departments that are doing their budgeting. So with Prophix, we can actually build budgeting models that make sense to each of the departments that are using them. One of the other things that is quite a paradox with companies nowadays is that because there are multiple data sources, because you're dealing with people who maybe don't know how to use the system properly, you go to meetings and you spend time talking about why is that number different than the number that I have. So with Prophix, it eliminates that because it removes all of the data inaccuracy. Prophix is an incredibly accurate reporting and budgeting tool because of all the controls that we've put in place and because of the strong integration to the ERP system. In terms of forecasting, in terms of producing predictive, forward-looking analytics, Prophix has the tools that you can use to take prior historical data and trend it forward in a very easy, very detailed manner. And ultimately, for organizations that are using Macola, what we really try to push forward is the ability to understand your product and your customer profitability that much better, because dealing with multiple products, dealing with lots of customers, that's an incredible amount of data. And to be able to build that into a single Excel sheet or build it into a technical report can be very cumbersome, and ultimately a lot of organizations just aren't utilizing that data in their ERP. With Prophix, we build that data into the system so that you can easily and quickly understand it. And this is because Prophix is an incredibly powerful engine, has incredibly powerful processing power. So we can deal with large amounts of data, including product and customer invoice level data. So what this means is that you're taking a very different cultural approach to a finance department. Before, you're spending a lot of your time on data reconciliation, data collection, but now you're spending your time on analysis. So really, it's a cultural change for the organization. So many people would ask themselves, well, why Prophix? As I mentioned, Prophix has the ability to address all models within the organization, from finance to sales to manufacturing to customer support. It has the ability to address all areas. And what this really speaks to is the fact that organizations want a unified tool that can do everything all in a central area. So they don't want multiple solutions that are not talking to one another. They want a single unified tool, and that is what Prophix and that is what CPM provides. Prophix enables you to go through the maturity model that I mentioned earlier at your own pace. We don't push a full-fledged CPM implementation right from the get-go. We want you to progressively roll out the software. We want you to progressively use the software. And what that means is that your end users are going to feel more comfortable. Your end users are going to adopt it that much better. So we really take a very phased approach to implementing the full CPM maturity model with our customers. One of the other things that is really pertinent to Macola customers is that there's a considerable amount of data that they need to report on a daily or a weekly basis. So production data, shipping data, manufacturing data, this information is not pertinent at a monthly level. It is incredibly pertinent at a weekly level, knowing what's going in, what's coming out. So we can produce those kinds of reporting at a daily or a weekly level and roll it up to the monthly level from there. In terms of cost, everything is configured. It's not customized. And what we mean by that is that Prophix is fully configured from a front-end environment. There is no back-end work. There is no coding. Our consultants are CPAs, much like many of you. We are not big on software programming. We really want to make the software easy to use from a front-end environment. What you'll see in a little bit is, in fact, we are using very technical back-end procedures, but we've taken those procedures and we've put them into a front-end click-by-click, click-and-drag type of environment. So unbeknownst to many of our customers, they are, in fact, using very complex type of procedures, but they're actually not really realizing it because of these simple front-end environments that we have. Additionally, you may be asking yourself, well, if I do want to go through the CPM maturity, I do want to build in dashboards over time, am I going to have to consider the additional software, the module-based software that I'm going to have to buy when I want to implement a new area of the CPM maturity model? No, you don't. So with Prophix, every single customer gets every piece of the software right from the get-go. But, as I said, you don't necessarily have to implement each area of the software. You can implement what is pertinent to you. You can implement what is within your budget. So this is definitely a key feature and quite a rarity in the software industry nowadays. In terms of access to data, Prophix not only has the ability to access all of the data within your ERP, but if you have multiple ERP systems, if you have CRM systems, if you have customer support systems, Prophix can unify all of that data. So it is a full integration to all of the data within your company. Again, it is simple, it is automated, and there is no security risk. The data is encrypted in the back end, but moreover, what I'm speaking to here is the fact that the data within Prophix, every user has their own profile and every user has their own security. So therefore, when they open up a report, that's the same report someone else is opening, it will not look remotely the same. It will look only with the data and with the information that you have assigned to that individual user. So security is incredibly important for our clients, and we definitely take that into account. In terms of some of the customers, you may notice a couple of Macola customers on here in particular, but the main reason why I'm showing this slide is that Prophix has the ability to serve a very wide range of the market. You're seeing $20, $50 million companies on here, but you're also seeing $2 billion companies on here. And what this really speaks to is the fact that Prophix, as a tool, has the ability to grow with your organization. So like I said, not just from a CPM maturity standpoint, but from a user-based standpoint. So if you go from 20 to 100 users, that doesn't even move the needle. You'll be able to just continue to work the way you're working without any additional considerations. So Prophix is an incredibly powerful tool and has the ability to serve not only multiple client sizes, but also multiple industries. So getting into our demo now, we're going to quickly go through a couple different areas in the time we have. We're going to go through the sort of home screen. We're going to go through a day in the life of a Prophix user. which will allow us to touch on a couple different areas. We'll go through budgeting and forecasting, personnel planning and CapEx planning, as well as the reporting and the analysis. So in terms of the data integration, just before I jump into Prophix itself, Prophix has the ability to connect to, as I said, all of the data within your organization. And the way that we import Prophix, the data into Prophix, is through an import wizard. There is no back-end type of integration that has to be done. It's all done through the front-end ETL wizard. And with that wizard, we have the ability to address all of the different models within the organization. So we could build one model which contains the account, chart of accounts. We could build another model which contains sales by customer, by product. So as you can see, all of those different models address different areas of the business. But at the end of the day, we make all that information always relate back to the financial statements. So consolidation is very simple. And with those reports and with all the information, you can actually distribute all this information out of Prophix to multiple different sources. So if your company prefers to distribute to Excel or distribute to PDF, they can do that. If you use SharePoint, you can do that as well. And lastly, we can build you online interactive dashboards for your organization. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, how often can the data be refreshed? So the data can be scheduled on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, monthly, weekly, but also can be run on demand. So for example, if you make a transaction in the ERP and you want to see what that means in Prophix, you want to see the result of that in Prophix, Prophix will be able to pick that up because you can run the refresh on demand. Moreover, you do also have the ability to drill back to the transactional data in your ERP. So you have the ability to look at all of the high-level information in Prophix, as well as drill back to all of the invoice-level data in your ERP. So really, Prophix enables you to get all of the information without ever really leaving the system. So you can get the high-level information, you can drill down to the account level, you could also drill down to the transactional level. So I'm now going to jump into Prophix. So this is the home screen of Prophix. This is the front end of Prophix, as we call it. Prophix is distributed through a smart client technology. So Prophix is actually a hybrid between a web-based as well as a on full install client. So for IT folks out there, the installation and deployment takes, a matter of seconds because you don't have to go around to each person's computer. You simply provide them with the link, and with a single click, they will have Prophix deployed to their desktop. And what this means for ongoing support for IT is that any future updates that you make to Prophix, so if you download and you install a new updated version of Prophix, every single user, the next time they log into Prophix, will automatically receive that update. So we generally say that Prophix is maybe a day's work over the course of an entire year for an IT team to be able to support. It is highly IT light, and it is something that can be really, truly managed by the Office of Finance. So just to explain a couple of the different things on the front end here. So the front end is completely customized for every single user. They can pick and choose what they want to be on their home screen. So the bottom left section here is the My Prophix section. These are the apps that I have favorited to my home screen, but by no means is this a full list of CPM functionality. If I click on My Apps, you'll actually see all of the different CPM modules or CPM applications that are in the software. So what I've done is I've said I use this one a lot, so I'm going to pin it to my home screen. So there we go. Now it shows up. If I want to remove it from my home screen, I can remove it from my home screen as well. The bottom right section, these are some favorited reports, favorited reporting packages, favorited processes that I've also put on my home screen. As well as an administrator, you can also distribute these favorite reports to your end users. So as people are sort of getting used to using the software, we generally recommend that you post some favorited reports to their home screen so you can control what they see on their home screen if you want to do that. It just makes things easier. It allows them to be able to get the information they want very quickly and very easily. Now, the upper section is a little bit more compelling. What the upper section is the My Tasks section, which is driven by our workflow manager. So each one of these tasks has been assigned to me, and each one of these tasks has a template attached to it. So for a budget administrator, I can assign tasks to all of my budget users and then monitor each one of those people and see how they're moving along. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump into my workflow manager here, and I'm going to show you how each one of these tasks was built up. So each task has an activity, and so we have our sales planning, our OPEX planning, our headcount planning, and then within each of those categories, we have each of the individual tasks for each user. So each user has their own tasks, and each user has an approver of their task. So for those of you who are wanting to be more collaborative with your budgeting, but you also want to be driving more accountability within your business, so you want people to actually see the information and say, yes, I'm signing up to those numbers, the workflow manager really helps with that. So once the owner has submitted their task and submitted their information, the approver will then be prompted to fill out that information and approve or reject the data that the owner has submitted to them. So the approver can make an adjustment, or they can simply say, I approve, the budget is submitted. Now, the one thing that you're probably noticing here, if I click through a couple of these different OPEX planning tasks, is the fact that the only things that are changing are the owner and the approver. The template has in fact not changed. So for those of you who are doing your budget in Excel, you're probably used to making individual templates for each of your users. With Prophix, it really changes all of that because of the individual security profiles. So I can make a single universal template for my OPEX planning and then distribute that out to every single one of my end users. And as each end user opens the template, it will change its view based on their security profile. So again, you're saving a considerable amount of time on redundant tasks like the distribution of templates, the creation of templates and reports. So what this allows me to do is in the middle of my budget cycle, I can monitor at any given time who has completed their budget, who's submitted their budget for approval. I can provide my leadership team with the progress of my budget very quickly and very easily. With Outlook, with an offline process that you might be used to, this is incredibly difficult to manage because you have no tool to actually identify who has and who hasn't completed their budget. So I have a nice little grid view of the budget progress. I have a Gantt chart for those folks who have more of a project approach to the budgeting process, as well as a visual aspect down here with the pie chart and the bar graph. So again, I have the ability to really manage my budget and truly manage it. So if a template needs to be adjusted in the middle of the budgeting cycle, you don't have to then redistribute the budget. You don't have to redistribute the template. The whole notion of the workflow manager is that everything is centrally controlled from it. So if I make a change to my template, I don't have to then confuse my budget owners or my budget managers with a new template that needs to be distributed out to them. I can quite simply and quite easily just make the adjustment to the template, and then the next time the user logs in, they really won't know the difference. So if you find yourself making changes to the budget templates a lot in the middle of your budget cycle, or there's multiple iterations, this really truly helps with that. It really removes a lot of the confusion for the end users. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to jump into one of my tasks. So to access my tasks, I can simply click on the task at the top here. Conversely, when a task has been assigned to me, the task is also emailed right to my inbox. So for those of you who are dealing with maybe some uncooperative individuals in the organization who always say, you know, I can't find my task, well, there's always two ways that you can get to that in Prophix. You can either click on the link that's been sent to your email automatically, or you can actually log right into Prophix. So the task will always be available to you. So as I click on my department expense planning template, I am an administrator, just to let you guys know, so I do have access to all of my departments within the organization. However, just for example's sake, if I only had access to marketing, this template, which is a universal template and can be used for every single one of my departments, is actually changing itself to meet my security profile. So there's no way to circumvent that as an end user. There's no way to get around it. It will only open with the data and with the accounts that have been assigned to me. So as you can see, the templates are very familiar. So if your users are mostly used to using a Excel-based tool to do their budgeting, the training and the amount of work that it takes to sort of transition them over to Prophix is very minimal, being that there's a lot of parallels between Prophix and Excel. So I'm going to go through a couple different budgeting approaches at the account level. This is just one type of budgeting. As I said, we also can do driver-based budgeting, employee-based budgeting, fixed asset-based budgeting. So this would be kind of the most common type of budgeting when we're doing operating expense planning. So I'm going to walk you through a couple different scenarios. Now, you're probably noticing that there's a couple different colors here. The gray is indicating that this information is entirely read-only. And the reason why is because my payroll costs are being built up at a more detailed level. So we're doing personnel planning at an employee level, not at an overall account level like you see here. So in a few seconds, we're going to jump over to that. But in the meantime, we're going to walk through a couple different ways that an end user can go about budgeting their operating expenses. So for an organization that wants to begin budgeting before the beginning of their next fiscal year, Prophix gives you the ability to actually forecast the remaining months of your time. So if we're in the middle of 2012 and we've only completed 9 months of actuals, but we want to provide our end users with a full year's view of information, we can actually do a multitude of things because, again, both the actuals and the budget are in Prophix. We could do two things. We could combine 9 months of actuals with 3 months of our original budget. We can combine 9 months of actuals with 3 months of forecasted budget. So Prophix actually has a tool that can forecast the original 9 months of actuals and trend it for our remaining 3 months. And it can do this at an incredibly detailed level. It can do it for every account, for every department. To do that in Excel or to do that offline could be very cumbersome to do because you would have to go line by line by line in order to do so. Prophix has the ability to manipulate large sums of data in a very quick online interface. So just to show a couple examples, I'm going to jump down to my travel cost section. Within my travel cost section, I'm seeing that there's roughly about $122,000 forecasted to come in for the remainder of the year. So I could do a couple different things. I could plan my information at a monthly level, like you might be familiar with to do in Excel. I have that available to me. And as I make those changes, you're going to notice that all of the data, all of my subtotals are automatically updating. I also have the ability to plan at an annual level. So for many organizations, they don't necessarily take a zero-based budgeting approach. to their coming year's budget anymore. Being that Prophix contains all of their actuals and all of their historical budget, they actually generally start with a baseline budget that is built on the forecast. So for this organization, I'm going to plan $125,000 in lodging for the coming year. Now, as an end user using Excel, I would not have the flexibility to plan both at a monthly level and an annual level. The reason being is that if I decided that I wanted to plan at an annual level, my administrator of the budget would have to set up each one of my monthly cells for me. So I do have an immense amount of flexibility to plan both at a monthly level as well as an annual level or a quarterly level, depending on what the organization wants you to do. So as I type in 125,000, it's prompting me with 4 different spread options. These are completely native to Prophix. Every customer has the ability to do this, and there's no extra work to be able to set these different spreading mechanisms up. So my first option is the ability to spread evenly. It will simply take the $125,000, divide it by 12, and spread it to the 12 months in my time period. The second option is to spread based on existing data for the current month. So I'm spreading down to the 12 months of the year, and there's already information in there. So if your baseline of the budget is based on the current year actuals, you could actually spread the data, and it will take a weighted average of each individual month and apply your $125,000 accordingly. Again, to be able to set this up in Excel would be very time-consuming and very difficult. The third option is to spread the data based on a spread factor. So for organizations that might be operating on a 4-4-5 schedule or a 5-4-4 schedule, whereby it's dictated by the number of weeks in the month, you can actually set up a spread factor that will spread the data based on the weekly schedules. Now, the last option is probably the most compelling option, because what we're effectively allowing the end user to do here is the ability to spread data based on another set of data in the system. So if I wanted to, I could actually say to myself, I'd like to spread this expense across the month based on how we have planned sales for the year. So what this means is I'm essentially saying to myself, I want to align my expenses with the budgeted sales. So for an organization who has rather seasonal sales, this might not be a bad idea to be able to do. So as an end user, I don't have to find those numbers, create a formula, and figure out how I'm going to spread that information. I can simply just go to the account, which would be gross sales, and select gross sales as the spreading factor for my expense planning. So this is incredibly compelling because essentially what we're utilizing is other data within the system. So for many organizations, this is exactly how they do their budgeting. They want to align their expenses with the sales of the organization. And as you can see, my ability to get to gross sales was fairly simple. It did not require me to know the summation of gross sales, that these 3 accounts added up to total gross sales. I simply just clicked down the hierarchy. So this is something that really speaks to what I spoke about earlier with respect to responding to ad hoc requests. In Prophix, everything is built based on a hierarchy. So it eliminates the folks that are knowledge experts of the accounting structure. It eliminates the fact that you have to have people who know what rolls up to what. I can visually see what rolls up to what. I don't have to call somebody and say, what's the total of gross sales, or what is gross sales made up of? I can visually see that on my template, on my account listing here. So when you go to create a new template, it's a very visual approach to doing so. You don't have to choose account ranges. You don't have to know the account structure. This is a very front-end, very simple interface to be able to understand, because for those people who are very visual learners, this can help them understand the accounting structure very easily and very simply. So I'm going to click OK, and what it's going to allow me to do is spread the data based on gross sales. But for our example today, I'm just going to choose spread evenly, and I'm going to click OK. And it's going to spread my 125,000 across all of my months, and it's also going to, again, update my subtotals. Now, you're probably also noticing that there is no formula bar in the templates here. The reason being is that with Prophix, because it's all on a hierarchy basis, there's no need to actually set up formulas for all of your subtotals. That notion is completely thrown out the window. We don't have to do that. And for a number of reasons, that really helps you out when you're distributing templates, because it eliminates the possibility that somebody is going to delete a formula, delete a row. It really eliminates all of those errors that people experience on a monthly basis. So within Prophix, if a new account is added, and it's added under my travel costs section, I don't have to come into this template and add a new row, update my sum formula. Prophix will automatically pick it up. It'll add it to the templates that are using the bottom level travel costs, and it'll automatically update everything for me. So on a monthly basis, if you're always adding new accounts to your ERP system, which then in turn means that you have to add new accounts and new rows to your templates, Prophix will do all of that work for you. So all of the redundant time that you spend adding rows, updating formulas is completely eliminated. So this kind of speaks to the month-end close process that Prophix helps you decrease the time on. Now, the other couple options that I have available to me if I want to do budgeting is if I right-click on a number, I have the ability to fill out a line item details budget. And what this might be more familiar for you guys is a more transactional level budget. So if I'm planning out line item details and I'm planning out that I want to plan a very transactional level budget, then I can do so. So for organizations in the not-for-profit sector, if organizations in the sort of world of cost cutting or very tight controls around expense planning, this gives you the ability as an administrator to allow your users to plan a transactional level budget, which you then can align in a variance report with the transactional level actuals. So I'm effectively planning for a single account for a single department, line by line by line. So as I plan everything out, it's going to provide me with the detail that there are line item details. So this maybe isn't necessarily helpful for me, but as an approver of a budget, I want to be notified when somebody's built a line item details budget. So if I see a blue triangle, that means that I'm going to right-click and go into my line item details, and I'm going to see all of the information in here. Conversely, also, we have the ability to do cell comments. Now, with cell comments in Prophix, it's a little bit different because with cell commentary in Excel, you have to assign the commentary to a specific cell in a specific worksheet in a specific tab. Within Prophix, we're assigning a cell comment to a specific piece of data. So as I make this commentary and I attach it to the line in my template, if I were to create a subsequent template that utilizes this exact same piece of data, so account 6520 for the marketing department, I don't then have to come back to my template and find the exact cell that had the commentary in it. It really changes that. It changes the time that you spend searching for data. So this commentary, if you built a variance report next month at a very detailed level like this cell commentary will be there. You don't have to come back to the exact template that held it. This is because Prophix has the ability to follow all the commentary, follow all of the line item details throughout the entire system. Nothing is attached to a specific template. So I'm going to jump into another task of mine, which is the personnel planning task. So again, when I open up personnel planning, this is an area that's very important to have good security around. So I'm only seeing the employees that pertain to my department, which is marketing, and I'm only seeing the information that has been allowed to see. So as you can see, we have all of the information, and this information is in fact the same exact information that is in your payroll system. With the detailed planning manager, which is how we build personnel planning for our clients, we have the ability to build an attribute-based or a variable-based planning model. So being that different health plans have different costs, different health providers have different costs. If you live in a different state, then you might have a different state tax. All of these things are different attributes or different variables which then dictate costs for the organization. So what we're essentially achieving here is the ability to replicate all of the exact same calculations your payroll system is doing, but for budgeting. So when we validate that the budgeting is working for our customers, we actually validate it for a given pay period within the organization. So for organizations that want to be very exact with their personnel and their payroll costs, this allows them to plan and be incredibly exact in that manner. So if I just go ahead here and make an example, so if I want to change a couple of my employees' salaries here, I can do so, and then with a single click, see how that changes the earnings, see how that changes payroll taxes and benefits. As I make these changes, I want to be able to see in real time what that means. For some organizations, they may not want to have the salary as an attribute, as a possible column that you can change. Some organizations may want to just plan based on position. Certainly in the manufacturing world and with a lot of Macola customers, everything is based on position because there's a lot of seasonal employees. You know, they hire X number of line workers. So we can build also position-based modeling. Now, what I'm going to show you next is the ability for Prophix to quickly and easily always relate the information back to the P&L, back to the balance sheet, very simply and very easily. So if I go ahead and hit update here, I can actually take my employee level budget and with a single click see what that means on my statement level. So I've essentially populated my employee level information, my payroll costs, at an account level at a very detailed level. And if I ever want to, I can always look at these numbers back in the detailed planning. So I always have the ability, and this is really the sort of mantra of Prophix, is that we always have the ability to go back to the detail. So this is our highest level, and if we want to go back to the detailed level, we have that ability as well. So if I am done my budget, then I do have the ability to then submit my budget. When I click submit, I have the ability to add commentary so that when my approver receives the email notifying them of the budget submission, they'll see some commentary about the budget. And if there's a little bit of back and forth, you know, I submitted, it gets rejected, I submit it again, we can always see all of the historical commentary that's been completed. So just to be cognizant of time here, I'm going to jump over to one other section. If we have some questions, feel free to ask them now, and we'll get to them right at the end. I'm going to jump over to the reporting. So with reporting, as I mentioned, Prophix pulls all of the data over from your ERP that you want to pull over. So if we want to pull financial data, if we want to pull product sales data, that's what Prophix is going to pull, and we can build reporting based on that. So if I just jump into, for example, my monthly income statement, it's going to open up the income statement. It's going to open it up with all of the information listed out here. Again, If a new account is added, so if I have a new GL account added this month, this template will automatically pick that up because I set the template up to always pull all the gross sales accounts. So as you can see here, again, it's a very simple, easy interface. As an administrator, I can jump from one department to the next very simply and very easily without having to create a whole other template to do so. So it has the dynamic ability to actually take a single template, and that single template can be used for a multitude of things. I can also jump between actuals and plan. So as you can see, very simple and easy to use. Now, a very, very common thing that happens within the Office of Finance is oftentimes people will say, I need more detail. I need to see product sales by my divisions. So the normal process to that would be to extract a new set of data from the ERP and produce a whole new report. As I said, this kind of changes that process. It changes and puts it on its head. So if I right-click on my number here and I go to Analyze, it's going to open up for me, just as an average end user, a free-form tool which I can then slice and dice my data. So quite simply, all I want to do is just see all of these divisions listed out for by sales. So I can just simply click, drag, and see all of my data listed out by my divisions. So very simply and very easily. If I want to remove all of the zeros, I can do that as well and see all of the information listed out. So this is the freeform tool. This is what really empowers the average end user to be able to see the data, slice and dice the data very easily. I can produce really quick and simple months to date and year to date. I can produce the versions which would have my actual and my plan. I can see those month to date and year to date. So as you can see, very simple, easy to use, slice and dice of the data. So for those organizations that really want to take the onus off of finance and have their end users be empowered to access the information they need, this significantly helps them with that. So the last thing I'm going to show you guys is if we've built out a number of reports. So as you guys can see, we have a lot of reports. You know, we have a management dashboard. We have product, brand, sales reporting. You know, we have a lot of different things that we've built. And a lot of these reports may need to go into a report binder or a management package. So what you can do in Prophix from a reporting standpoint is actually build those packets in Prophix. So we can combine a Prophix template with a Excel report or a Word report or a PDF report. If you have other reports outside of your organization, if you have reports that are coming outside of Prophix from another system, you can still combine them into a single packet in Prophix. So what I can do is I can actually create a single management reporting package and distribute it to all of the different VPs, for example, so VP of sales, manufacturing, admin and finance. But I don't have to create multiple packages, multiple templates for each person because, again, as each template gets distributed, it takes the individual user's security profile and changes it. So when I distribute the template, it will actually go, again, straight to the end user's inbox into a single unified PDF. So when I distribute it, it'll look something like this. So at the start, we have my management dashboard. And again, if I only have access to, let's just say, the consumer division and the internet division, then that's all I'm going to see. I'm not going to be left with a bunch of blank pages after those. So I have combined, essentially, some BI, some management packages with the dashboarding. I've combined that with my balance sheet, with my income statement. I've combined all of these reports together in a single unified management package. So again, this is something that oftentimes is a requirement of finance to be providing it either to management or to ownership, and it takes a considerable amount of time to do. So just before I wrap up, because we're about 2 minutes to 10, as I said, Prophix does have the ability to address all areas of the business. So if the organization is planning sales by quantity, by price, and they want to actually build out the cost of sales by direct labor, direct materials, you can plan out all of your product sales by customer very easily and very simply, and with a single click, always see that information relating right back to your income statement. So I know we're kind of nearing the end, but I did want to just sort of point that out because, as I said, Prophix does have the ability to address all areas of the business. And being that all areas of the business maybe don't want to necessarily plan at this level, we can build those areas in and always link them back very quickly and very easily. So I'm going to just jump back to the PowerPoint here as to just sort of end things off. So in summary, what really Prophix is a single unified tool that can address all pieces of data within the organization. So everything from budgeting and forecasting to personnel planning, CapEx, sales planning, and reporting and analysis. So for those of you who are looking for tools, who are looking for a piece of software that can be that single unified solution for you to grow with, for your business to use year over year over year, and for a tool that will save you time in a lot of the redundant things that we've talked about today, Prophix really is that tool. It is an incredibly powerful tool, and it's something that we have been very successful integrating to Macola in particular. So I'm just going to get to a couple questions here. If anybody has any particular questions, Jeff, do you have any questions that you might want to bring up for the team?
Yes, Chris, great presentation. Obviously, we are very happy to have you here and to do this. One thing I wanted to ask about, for my own understanding, you mentioned about being able to access different data sources across your company. Mm-hmm. Are there limitations on where those different data sources come from? I mean, some companies we come across obviously have different ERPs even in different divisions within their corporate structure, or pulling data from other non-ERP sources. Are there any limitations that way within the Prophix solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, there aren't any limitations. That's something that we really are quite strong on, is integrations to not only multiple ERP systems, but multiple database types. So whether your databases are SQL or Pervasive or Progressive or FoxPro, Prophix has the ability to integrate to multiple data sources. If you're dealing with an organization whereby you have multiple entities, and the databases are scattered all over the globe and they're using different accounting structures, that's something that Prophix really hits home in terms of consolidation. So if you want to map those different accounting structures over to a unified structure, or if you want each company to still have their own structure, but Prophix to do the consolidation work for you, that is a really big feature of our software. And as many people would know, that's a very time-consuming, very difficult thing to do on a monthly basis. So for organizations that are using Prophix in that manner, it's a really, really powerful tool to be able to use to consolidate your data and consolidate your different business entities.
Okay, great. And then we've got one of our users submitted a question a little while ago, and I want to make sure that we get to it. Basically, they were saying that they budget in Excel, not in their ERP. And is that going to present a problem?
No. So for organizations that are currently all of their budget data is in Excel, but not necessarily in their ERP, so they haven't uploaded it into the database, Prophix can connect to your Excel sheets and load the budget data into the system. Since ultimately, we want to bring the data, both the actuals and the budget, into Prophix, into the unified environment. we can also connect to your Excel sheet. So that's very, very common. Definitely, most organizations do just keep their budget data in Excel. They don't put it into their ERP. So we have developed that connector to Excel to bring in your data into Prophix.
And so just to make sure I understand, Chris, those connectors are built into the software. It's not an add-on that somebody would have to purchase later. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. So all of the connectors are completely native. They're all built in. They're out of the box. So there's no additional work or customization or consulting time that has to be done to build it for each of our clients.
Okay, great. We do have another question from one of our users. They're asking, how is licensing handled? Is it based on number of users?
Yeah, licensing is on a user-by-user basis. So you will buy your licensing on a user-by-user basis to named users. Licensing can be transferred, so you don't have, if somebody leaves the organization or your administrator is gone for 3 weeks, you can transfer those licenses over. And there are varying tiers of licenses to meet your needs. So not every user needs to have the same access that the administrator has. So we in fact have 5 different tiers of licenses, which really suit all of the varying needs within the organization, from people who just do budgeting to people who produce reports to people who just need to receive reports. We have varying licensing profiles and pricing to meet those needs.
Okay, great. Now, I have not seen any other questions here in the chat window. Chris, if you wouldn't mind checking your chat window as well, because I know that some people will accidentally send a message to only one person, and so I just want to make sure that we haven't missed anything. We are at that point, though, where I think we're just about filling up the hour and maybe have run over a little bit. So if we've got a question or two that are there, I want to make sure that we get to them. And if you would take a look. While you're doing that, I want to mention anyone that's attending, if you think of questions that you want to ask afterwards, you can send those questions to, we have set up a specific email address, info@algorithminc.com, where you can submit questions regarding licensing about the Prophix or any of the other solutions that you are seeing during this webinar series this week, or to ask follow-up questions, whether it's on this solution or another. We can direct those questions to the appropriate person and get answers for you.
Yeah, it looks like we've answered all the questions in my window, so I think we're good for today.
Okay, terrific. Please, again, if there are follow-up questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Again, I want to remind everybody that we have 2 more in this Financial Reporting Tools webinar series tomorrow and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and we hope that you have the opportunity to join us. Additionally, we have recorded today's session, and so that recording will be made available to attendees so that they can review the material again. Again, I want to thank Chris Porter from Prophix for joining us and presenting today. Terrific information, Chris. Look forward to following up with you on any follow-up questions that we've gotten from attendees. But again, thank you for your time today. And,
yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
And also, I want to thank all of our attendees. I understand it's difficult to carve an hour out of your day, and you've given us an hour, and we appreciate it. Again, don't hesitate to contact your account manager here at Algorithm, or if you're unsure who your account manager is, you can use that info@algorithminc.com email address for that request as well. And with that, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks again, everybody. We appreciate it, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.